Hey everyone, Knowledge here with Reach Your Summit. In this video, I'm going to show you a few more additional ways that I like to set up my small ultralight tarp. All right, thanks for joining me. So I've been getting quite a few questions lately asking about different pitches that I like to use when I'm out on the trail using my smaller ultralight tarp. And I've had such great feedback from all of you and great conversations after sharing a different tarp video on this channel, going over 5 different pitches that I like to use with that tarp. So I thought it would be fun to show you a couple more in another video. So my hope with this video is that it shows you those additional pitches that I like to use, whether I'm using a small tarp like this Mountain Laurel Designs Monk tarp, or my other tarps like my 9-foot by 9-foot Ultra TNT tarp, or my 7-foot by 9-foot Z-Packs DCF tarp. And I also hope that it gives you a little bit more of an idea of what you're really working with when it comes to such a minimal tarp. This is not going to be a tarp for everyone. It definitely requires a little bit more skill set, not only with different pitches, but also with great campsite selection. I shared a little bit of that with you all in the other tarp video, so I'll put a link in the description for this video so you can circle back and check out that video whenever you'd like. Surprisingly, you can still get by quite a bit with a small tarp like this. You're not going to be living in luxury in most cases. You have to be comfortable with a little bit of discomfort. So with that, let's get into some of the pitches that I like to use with my 9-foot by 4-foot 3-inch wide Mountain Laurel Designs Monk tarp. And along with the tarp that I have here, I like using these nail peg stakes. These are Z-Packs carbon fiber nail stakes, and I find these peg stakes to work really well. They don't have the greatest holding power compared to your traditional Y or V style stake, but they're a good happy medium between the best holding power and the lowest holding power, which would be something like a titanium shepherd hook stake. And along with using these to set up my tarps, I also like using these stakes to set up my tents if I'm using a tent on the trail instead of a tarp. So this is an aerial view of the MLD Monk tarp in 0.5 DCF, just to give you an idea of what I'm going to be working with here. It is a lot narrower than a lot of my other tarps, super minimal, but I can still get by with quite a few different pitches, which I will show you. There's my Palante Ultralight pack next to the tarp, just to give you an idea of the width a little bit more, give you a different perspective. So the first pitch I'm going to show you all is the asymmetrical hold-in. This is a pitch that I used recently up in the Catskills in New York, out on the Long Path and Escarpment Trail on a solo backpacking trip. So to use this pitch, you're going to need 2 trekking poles or 2 sticks, or a tree nearby to tie off one end. I have 1 trekking pole here, so I'm going to get a stick for the other tie out. And then I have my Z-Packs stakes. So to start off with this pitch, I'm gonna stake out the far back end corner and the other far back end corner. Then I'm going to take the line that is right in the center of my tarp, going to remove it for this pitch, and I'm gonna go to the next tie out point, which is 1 in from the outer corner. Then I'm going to take my pole, going to adjust it to right around 125 centimeters. Then I'm going to make a clove hitch. and stake this out. Then I'm gonna stake the other two front corners out. So this corner and the corner at the other end. And I'm going to stake out the back. Then I'm going to take my panel tie out here, and I can tie a bowline. And then I want a stick or another trekking pole, and I'm going to pull up on that and stake that line out. So this is the asymmetrical hold-in. So what's nice about this pitch is I have a whole bunch of room in the back over here for my gear and also my shoes if I wanted to leave them there. And I have a peak height right where I'm going to be sitting up. So I have some room to be comfortable when I'm getting up out from under the tarp. I also have a little bit of protection here to sit under the tarp and do what I need to. And I can raise that a little bit more if I wanted to and adjust the angle of the pitch. But this setup gives me a good amount of protection and additional protection right here too. If I wanted to, I can really pitch this down a little bit more if I wanted with an additional guy line. But this one just required the 4 corner tie outs, the 1 ridge line tie out up in the front, and 1 of the panel tie outs on the side right here. All right, now I'm going to disassemble this and we'll go from the asymmetrical hold-in to a tent-like shelter setup. This next setup is going to be a little similar to the tent pitch that I used for my 9-foot by 9-foot Ultra TNT square tarp. It's going to be a little bit more minimal though, just because this is a lot smaller of a tarp, but there is still a way that you can configure it and pitch it to have a pyramid tent-like structure to it. So let's get into that pitch with a rectangular flat tarp. So I have everything disassembled here. All I'm going to do is remove the guy line in the front here that I used for the asymmetrical hold-in, and I'm going to go back to the middle of the tarp and feed that line through. I'm going to keep the line for the front corners where I'm going to be entering and exiting. I'm going to keep this line attached right in the center on the opposite side of where I just placed the other line for the entrance. And then I'm going to take the back corners and I'm going to remove that line, and I'm going to place it in the next tie out from the corners. So this is what I'm looking at now. Front corner, center, other front corner, back corner, there's nothing. Next guy line is in the next tie out. Center in the back, and the other tie out closest to the center. So to start, I'm going to tie out those middle tie outs between the center and the corner. Then I'm going to tie the center out here on the front where I'm going to enter and exit, and I'm going to do the clove hitch again. Trekking pole is the same height. Then on one end, I have the empty corner here, the mid tie out, and then the tie out where I have the guy line in the front. Just going to fold this back corner under, and I can add line to this if I wanted to, or I can just stake out the loop on its own. I'm going to put line in this line lock here. and I'm going to stake that out. Then I'm gonna do the same with the other side. Then I'm going to tie the corners out in the front. So here's what you're looking at for the mid pitch with the tarp. And then if I pull my Tyvek out, you can see the corners both tucked away under there. And I can pull that down a little bit more if I needed it, but you do want to keep a good amount of airflow in here so you're not getting condensation built up. With this pitch, I have a decent amount of room to lay down and be comfortable. I have space back here for my gear. I also have the additional tarp fabric tucked away in the back, so that can act as a platform if I wanted to store my gear on it at all. I have a couple of little storage shelves there. And what's nice about this pitch is it gives me a little bit more storm protection than a traditional half pyramid or Holden tent. I do sacrifice a little bit of space due to the back corners being pulled down a lot closer to the ground and folded inward, but it gives me a little bit more wind protection and storm protection if I need it. With the opening here, if I needed additional protection and I didn't have a tree or a boulder or something to give me that coverage, I can always place a hiking umbrella on the outside, which I've done at times with my tarps. Or I can just take my rain jacket, or in this case, a wind jacket, just to show you. Depending on which side the wind and rain is, I can always tie it off like this. I have my panel tie out here. So I just tie the sleeve around it. And then tie the other one off to the trekking pole. And that gives me a little bit more protection. So for this next pitch, I'm back to guy lines on each of the corners on every side. I've removed the guy line from the center lengthwise of the tarp on both sides, and I've brought it to the width side on both sides. This is going to be my ridge line, so I have line here and then line down in the center right there. And then I have some guy line tied to one of the panel tie outs right here. And for this pitch, I'm just staking the four corners out first. I'm gonna do the clove hitch again. Stake this out. And then I'm gonna take my tie out here with the stick again. Going to tie that, and then I'm going to use the same stake that I have for this tie out around this as well. And then if I wanted to, I can pull these down a bit more too. So this is a modified A-frame pitched lower in a storm mode. I used some additional line for the two tie outs here and on the other side, and some additional stakes just to keep this from blowing up in the wind. Have my stick again pulling out that panel tie out, and that could be another trekking pole if you had two trekking poles. And for a traditional A-frame, that's where your other pole or stick would be. What's nice about this pitch is I do have a nice easy entry and exit if I wanted. I just release this guy line here I can undo that, I can crawl in, and then from under the tarp, I can reach over and stake out that corner again. So I have some room under the tarp here, can keep my gear under here with me and have a decent amount of protection from the rain. If I wanted to, I can pull these sides down a little bit closer to the ground to give me additional wind protection, or if I'm getting a sideways rain, and I can remain comfortable to a certain extent. With this specific tarp, this is not a pitch that I'm going to be using all of the time or just because. This is just for those specific situations when I need a good amount of coverage. Obviously, I'll have a lot more room if I'm doing this with a larger tarp, but this will help get me by for those certain situations that I might need it. Don't want to be under here for too long, and using this pitch with this specific size tarp for several days, I would just go stir crazy if I ended up needing to do that. And with this tarp, I can also do a flying diamond. So I'm going to show you that pitch really quick. I showed this one on my other video with the 7x9 tarp, but I want to give you an idea of what you'd be looking at if you were to use that specific pitch with using a smaller tarp. So for the flying V, I have line attached to one corner, and then all the way at the other end of the tarp on the opposite corner, I have my other ridge line. And then in the center tie-outs, I have some line here, and also over here, directly across from it. And this flying diamond will be asymmetrical, of course, because I'm working with a rectangular tarp and not a square tarp. I'm gonna center that right around the center of my Tyvek ground cloth. And I'll take this, use the clove hitch again, stake this out, and then I'm going to stake this side out and stake this side out. So that's what I would be working with a square tarp. And then to finish it off, I'll stake out this corner. So I'm going to add some line to it. You can also stake out that corner on its own if you wanted to. And then this corner, I can stake to the ground, or I can stake it out with some additional line. So here's the variation of the flying diamond with a 9 foot by 4.5-ish foot tarp. To help you visualize it a little easier, let me just detach this and detach this. And then if I folded this over, you have your diamond shape. Obviously, this is way too small to sleep in. Unless you're using a bivvy and you have your head area underneath the diamond here and your feet sticking out. And I could adjust the tension with this pitch. Open it up a little bit more if I wanted to. And I have a good amount of protection around this whole side over here. It's definitely open more here and over here, so I would need to pay attention to the wind direction and where the precip is going to be coming from, if there's any. But I still have a good amount of room underneath the tarp here to be pretty comfortable. So there you have it. These are a few pitches that I like to use when I'm using a tarp this small. I hope that it helped give you a little bit more of an idea of what I'm working with when I'm using a tarp this small and I'm out on the trail. Maybe encourage you and inspire you all to try tarps out on your own. Maybe not a tarp this small, but as you've seen in many of my videos now and also on some of my trips, I love using tarps. I just love the deep connection that it gives you when you're out on the trail. It really allows me to open up and enjoy everything that I'm getting out to explore when I'm out on my backpacking trips and through hikes. Really enhances the enjoyment for me. If you like this video, hit the like button and consider subscribing to my channel. I have a lot more in the works and I'm really looking forward to sharing all of that with all of you. If you have any questions about this tarp or my other tarps or anything else in my other videos, please feel free to leave them in a comment below, or you can contact me at any time at reachyoursummit.net. And lastly, are any of you avid tarp users? What types of pitches do you like to use? And what kind of tarp are you using? Leave those in a comment below too. I'd love to see what everybody else is using out there. I'd like to thank you all for watching. Thank you for subscribing. I greatly appreciate it. Really enjoyed putting this video together for all of you. And until the next one, see you on the trail. A couple other benefits of tarps: easy breakdown and cleanup at camp each morning. And it packs up super, super small.